Ladies and gentlemen, this is the American Fork City Council special session for March 29th of 2016. Our regularly scheduled meeting would have been on the 22nd, and in order to keep all of the people in caucus that wanted to attend, we changed, because there were 5 Tuesdays in the month of March, moved it to the 29th. So this is the meeting that should have been a week ago, but we're holding it tonight instead. I'd like to mention that the city has amended this agenda to add a work session at the end, and we'll follow the agenda as outlined, copies of which are on the table in the middle of the room. We're streaming this meeting live this evening, so anyone that would like to watch it on their tablet at their convenience, wherever they are, could do so by going to afcity.org and clicking the appropriate box, and you can stream us live. The agenda has been posted at the state's website as required by state law, as well as conspicuously posted throughout the community. We'll follow that agenda as posted. We'd like to begin this evening with the Pledge of Allegiance, after which Mr. George Shade will offer our opening prayer, and then we will conduct a roll call. Would the audience please rise? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our Father in heaven, as we assemble for the City Council meeting, we are grateful to Thee for all the many blessings we enjoy in our lives. We are grateful for the freedoms that we enjoy in this country. We are grateful for those who provide that freedom and who protect us, both in our country and abroad. And we ask You to bless their families as they are away from their families, that they will be protected and that their families will understand and be protected as well. We're grateful for this mayor and city council, and please bless them as they do the business of the city, that they will be able to do all that they can to make sure that they make the best decision possible for the city. We are grateful for the citizens of this city and for the work and volunteer efforts that they do on all of our behalf to make this a great city. We're grateful for all we have. We say these things humbly in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, George. I will now conduct a roll call. Councilman Barnes.
Here.
Councilman Bowen.
Present.
Councilman Frost is excused this evening. He has thrown his hat in the ring for a county commission seat with the Utah County race coming up in November, and he has meet the candidate night tonight. We miss Councilman, we miss him, but we wish him well in his endeavors. Councilman Shelton.
Here.
Councilman Shorter.
Here.
We have 4 council members here. We can conduct the business of the community. It means that 3 council members will have to vote in the affirmative to make it carry. We would now like to invite those young men that are here for scouting purposes, for rank advancements, or for merit badge requirements. Come forward and let's introduce yourselves now, if you would, please. Anyone in the audience here for scouting purposes, come forward. You can turn that microphone around and just bend it backwards, if you would, and tell us your name, your troop, your rank, and who your scout leader is, please.
My name is Bryce. I am earning my communications merit badge. I am almost to my star, and my chip's 1184.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Bryce. Thank you very much. We wish you well as you go along scouting's pathway. When it comes time to be a life and start looking for an Eagle Scout project, there's many things you can do in the community, and we encourage you to make that Eagle Scout requirement involve the community, because it will serve our residents very well. It's now that time on our program when we set time aside in every meeting for anyone who wishes to address the city staff can come forward to the microphone and take some time at this point in our meeting and bring your concerns to the city. Anyone for the free microphone, come forward now, please.
I'm happy to be here. I'm Leila Bartholomew. I'm the Executive Director of Timpanogos Arts Foundation, and I would just like to thank the City Council and the Mayor for their consideration in the Park Committee, for their consideration in funding us for this past year. We could not do it without you. And I'd also like to let you know that in this last year, our volunteers have put in over 16,000 hours in helping out the various groups, which are the Symphony, Wasatch Winds, Timpanogos Chorale, American Fork Children's Choir, Youth Theater, Community Theater, and the Visual Arts Board, and also the Mary Kawakami speech contest. We are truly grateful for you for doing that, and just as a monetary value, if you multiply that out by $7.25 an hour, it comes to over $100,000. Which is, you know, in my estimation, a good thing from the volunteers that help us, and we do appreciate what you do for us. Thank you.
We appreciate you, Leila. The arts in our community is strong and vibrant. It adds a great deal of quality of life to all of our residents and those that surround us. We appreciate your work and your efforts on our behalf, and thank you. And we also would like to extend a thanks to the Park Tax Committee and to our citizens who passed in the year, in the November 2014, we passed a 1/4 cent sales tax for a park tax for our parks, arts, recreation, and culture. And that became effective. We passed an ordinance in January of 2015. And on April of 2015, Utah State Tax Commission started collecting sales tax in our community. And tonight we will award 2 of those, one to the Timpanogos Arts Foundation and one to our Recreation Department to use up that money that was accrued in the year 2015 in our park tax allocation. So thanks to you, our citizens who passed that. I think we'll see great things to come in our parks, arts, recreation, and culture as a result of this 1/4 cent sales tax. So to each of you, we say thank you. It's now time for the city administrator's report. Mr. Whitehead.
Mr. Penley's grabbing the microphone, I have 3 items I'd like to note. The first is we've received some national recognition in this trade magazine called Trenchless Technology. There's an article in there on our infiltration project, as you know, that we've been doing for several years and that has saved us hundreds of thousands of dollars in our sewer bills to the treatment plant. And Aaron Brams, thanks to him, he's quoted in there. And it's a nice article, and you'll all get a copy of that. I'll be sending that with the weekly report. Excuse me. Secondly, I'm pleased to announce that Officer Diego Garcia received the Officer of the Year award from the Utah Chiefs of Police Association this past week at their conference in St. George. Excuse me. He was recognized for his handling of an attempted suicide, and you'll get more details in the report, but it was really based on him following a hunch to find out where this person who has attempted suicide was. She actually located her at a motel, got her husband and the Lehigh Fire Department, broke down and got into the room and found her, and if they hadn't found her then, she would have certainly died. So he was recognized for that. Excuse me. And just lastly, I'd like to congratulate Dick and say thanks. Ever since I've been here for 5 years, he's been a wealth of knowledge and information about the city and wise counsel, and I've appreciated that very much in serving with him. Thanks, that's all.
Thank you. City Council reports. Councilman Barnes.
It's good to be here. I had a couple of meetings this past month, just briefly. Met with the Cemetery Committee on the 7th. They are underway and planning for another fantastic Memorial Day meeting, which will be held, and celebration, I guess. Where'd he go? Which will be held on Memorial Day. I was looking for Ray. And I encourage everybody to come participate in that. It's always a good event. On the 23rd, which was last Wednesday, met with Parks, Trails, and Recreation Committee. They are pleased to now be basically fully staffed and functioning, or will be shortly when we get some other business done. And they have put in their request, obviously, for the park, PARC versus PARK money, and they're just waiting the decision on that. And just want to say, again, I'm impressed with the people that serve this community on the committees for volunteering their time and their efforts and their expertise, not expecting anything in return other than the opportunity to serve and help bless this community and the citizens of this community, and make it a better place to live. And I think the ones, at least all of the committees I'm associated with, Mayor, are doing a great job of that. And as a city, I think we should always be grateful for their volunteer efforts.
Thanks for that.
That's
report,
enough.
Councilman. Councilman Bowen.
Yeah, just a couple things to report, Mayor. So I would echo what Councilman Barnes said about those who serve. My experience has also been that people serve out of a genuine interest to just serve their community, which I think is tremendous. And it is a lot of volunteer hours, and I think it is a benefit to our community. One of the committees I work with is the Beautification Committee, and I had the opportunity to meet with them. And also Councilman Frost attended our meeting regarding the cemetery landscaping, and we talked about maybe designating a heritage tree that's being donated for the cemetery there. And I think that's a great idea. Also, last Tuesday, as you mentioned, Mayor, we didn't have our regular meeting because of the caucuses, and had the unique opportunity. Councilman Shelton and I happened to be in the same caucus, and we're both nominated for the same position, and you might not believe it, but we both won. So that was enjoyable. Councilman Frost won the first time, and I was scratching my head. I'd witnessed the count. We did preferential balloting, and something just didn't seem right. I'd had the most votes on the first count, but then he ended up the winner. But I gracefully conceded to him. But then as I was thinking about it, I called for a recount, just politely with him behind the scenes, and I appreciated that he was willing to do that. And we recounted it. This was the first count using the preferential method. It was just an innocent mistake. But on the second count, I prevailed. So. That was a unique experience. I'm thankful for that opportunity, and Rob did a good job running the meeting. And I believe that's all I have for my report tonight, Mayor.
Thank you. Time for rebuttal. Councilman Shelton.
You know, I had a great opportunity to work with the Still Days Committee. I'm just impressed with those that have stepped up and are willing to serve. And I'm excited about the first action item on the agenda tonight. I've been very impressed with Nadine and everything that she's done, and I'm glad that Dawn's here because it's good to see the support that's behind this amazing woman that just seems to have a fireball attitude and get things done all the time. So it's pretty awesome. So I'm really looking forward to the Still Days activities that are coming up. Also had the opportunity to attend the Daddy-Daughter Dance. It was the first annual one put on by Miss American Fork. And that was really neat. It was held at Fox Hollow Golf Course. And some of the comments from some of the residents that attended was a gentleman who said he's never been in a suit for 15 years, and this is the first time he was willing to put a suit on, and that's because his daughter wanted him to attend. They had a little nail painting station where many dads were trying to paint their daughter's nails, and I'm sure that was kind of an interesting activity. But what was even more interesting is when the dads allowed their daughter to paint their fingernails, and then they had a dance off, and it was a lot of fun. Miss American Fork has to raise X number of dollars to be able to participate in the Miss Utah pageant, and that money goes to the Miracle Network. And so this was a great activity. She was able to raise double the amount that she needed to be able to go. And so it was neat to see the community support it, but also to strengthen those relationships in the community with the fathers and daughters out there. Last but not least, I'd feel very bad if I didn't get a chance to express my deep love for Dick and everything that he's done. I attended my first council meeting with Dick as a young scout, And believe it or not, he was my scout leader for many years. And if anyone wants to help his retirement fund, I'm sure he would take money and donations for any dirty stories, because as you know, as a scout, there are a lot of good stories and dirt that you could have as a leader on a youth. And I really enjoy reminiscing those. I've been impressed with him as a council member and the way that he has diplomatically carried out his duties as a recorder. A lot of times that's a difficult spot because you have a lot of differing opinions on the council and the mayor position. And Dick has always been one to never take any sides, but just fulfill his duties the best that he can. And he's going to be greatly missed at these meetings, and I wish him well in retirement. But thank you, Dick, for all your time and service to the city.
Thank you for that report, Councilman. Councilman Shorter?
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to welcome the Timpanogos Arts Foundation members that are here. It's good to see them here. I meet with them regularly, and it's good to see them. And also with Richard, I wanted to thank him too for all the help he gave me as a first time running for city council. I had no idea what I was doing, what reports I had to fill out, and Dick was there to help every step of the way. It's time to get this report in, here's what you need to do. And so it was really good to work with him for that amount of time. And like I said, Richard's been a great, I just admire he's just steady. He doesn't get wrapped up in any battles with anybody or any opinions. He just does his job and has done it really well for many years. And I appreciate the chance to work with him. It's been a great experience for me. That's all I have, Mayor.
Thank you for that report. Councilman Bowen would like to say a few words.
Yeah, I also had wanted to congratulate Dick on his retirement Thursday, and again, when I came into the city council, it was a little bit contentious, our election battle, and I would say that Dick has been, Mr. Richard Colburn, the city recorder, has been one person that I had trust with right from the beginning. I did file with him also and felt like that process was upfront and fair and open. I believe he's a wealth of knowledge. He's served for a long time through many different administrations, many different council members. I believe that he's fair and even-handed, and I think he does a great job as recorder in trying to understand and capture what the discussion is. And so I really appreciate your service, Mr. Colburn, and want you to know that you will be missed.
Thank you for that report, Council. The mayor's report. I would just report that a week ago, American Fork City signed some reissuance of general obligation bonds. As you know, in 2007 and 2008, we bonded for pressurized irrigation. We borrowed about $39 million to put that pressurized irrigation system in. Those bonds are now able to go out and be recalled. We financed those bonds at 5.25%. And last week we signed with a national organization which gave us 2.7% on those same bonds, and the result of that will be about $4.8 million savings over the life of those bonds. So we're $4.8 million richer. We can't spend it today, but it will reduce our tax debt to our citizens by $4.8 million. I'd also like to recognize Mr. Colburn for the past 37 years. He's been the city administrator. I've been associated with the city for 25 of those years. Many of those years he was the planning administrator as well as city recorder, and I was on the planning commission and worked with Dick to put those agendas together and do things. But tonight I'd like to recognize him for his service, his wealth of knowledge. He is the institutional memory in American Fork City. He has a mind like a steel trap. And I'll say, Dick, was there something we did about this and this and this? And he'll say, well, Mayor, I think it was about June of 1972, we made an ordinance, and he'll dig it out and post it and bring it to me because he has that memory and he's very much in control of things. Tonight I'd like him to stand, and his wife Nyla is here with us this evening. Nyla, would you stand, please? Come on. Would you all join me in giving Dick a round of applause? Thank you. Kathy Allred is here from the Provo Herald, and Kathy, if you don't take a picture of Dick and have an article in tomorrow's paper, I'll never invite you back to another city meeting. Okay, you can do it at his going away party on Thursday. Do it at his going away party on Thursday and write a very superb article because he'll have a lot of information to give you. And he's got a lot of good stories on Councilman Shelton when he was a Boy Scout in Dick's troop. And they were camped up in the Mineral Basin and in Mary Ellen Gulch. Dick's got a lot of good stories because he shared them with me. That's the mayor's report for this evening. Thank you, Dick and Nyla, for being here with us this evening. We're going to greatly miss you. We'll move on to the common consent agenda. The common consent agenda this evening includes approval of the March 3rd, 2016 work session minutes, approval of the March 8th, 2016 city council minutes, and approval of city bills for payment purchase request over $25,000. Is there a motion to approve the common consent agenda?
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Shorter. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Shelton. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I'll call for all in favor. Say aye. I beg your pardon. We are going to use our tablets tonight. Would you please mark your vote on the tablets, please, for the common consent agenda?
Mine isn't quite set up yet, sorry.
Okay, would you vote now, please? All right, we have 3 in the affirmative. Motion carries to approve the common consent agenda. Action items this evening. Review and action on the appointment of Nadine Milham to the Parks and Recreation Committee and for Bruce Franson to be appointed to the Cemetery Committee. These are the recommendations of those committees, and they've been appointed by the mayor. I'd ask for a motion to approve these recommendations of these members to the Parks and to the Cemetery Committee.
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Bowen. Is there a second?
Second, Mayor. Could we have them stand?
Mr. Franson is not with us this evening. Thank you, Nadine. I have a motion and a second. I would ask you to use your tablets to vote, please. Motion by Councilman Bowen, seconded by Councilman Shorter. Would you please use your tablets to vote? It's unanimous. Thank you. Item 2, review and action on a resolution amending the transportation element of the American Fork City General Plan in order to eliminate a collector class road at approximately 1190 East between 1100 North and North Utah County Boulevard. This was a recommendation of the Planning Commission. We have our transportation expert with us this evening. If there are questions, we will ask him to respond to those. Our general plan for transportation had that area highlighted. We have now been able to get Lyle Smart property in for an annexation, and we will connect 700 North to 1100 North at about 1280 East, and it will carry that same amount of traffic without having that dogleg come in the middle of the temple. I think it's a good move, and I recommend its approval. Is there a motion to approve the resolution amending the transportation element of the American Fork City General Plan?
Mayor,
So moved. Oh,
Mayor, I'd move to approve the resolution adopting the amendment to the transportation element of the American Fork City General Plan and eliminate the collector class road at approximately 1190 East between 1100 North and North Utah County Boulevard.
Thank you for that motion, Councilman Shorter. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Seconded by Councilman Bowen. Any questions on this motion? Hearing none, I would ask the council to use your tablets to vote, please.
Actually, did have some discussion, not a question, if I could just real fast. 1100 North has a lot of traffic on it, and that's where we're putting a light, and I think it makes sense to put a light there. I'm not a person that generally favors traffic signals, but the school leads to Lincoln Academy, which is a public charter school, and there's a lot of traffic coming north from the north that would not be able to use this dog leg, and also the way this land's being developed, has changed, and so it doesn't really make sense to have that dog leg either. But I think it would make more sense to have a light at 1100 North, regardless, because of traffic volume on that road. I happen to live in that area, as does Councilman Schelt. I think he would agree too. I don't know if he has anything
All
to
right,
say.
we will ask our city engineer, Mr. Gallo, to discuss that with the Utah Department of Transportation and see if a light is warranted.
Mr. Mayor, council, members of the council, a recent study was done by UDOT to meet the warrants for the installation of a traffic signal, and the signal has been warranted. So this is a project that is going to be approved in the next upcoming budget year. So very likely by the end of the summer, we're going to have a traffic signal at that intersection.
Thank you. I do think it's important to know is the Smart property, Lyle Smart property comes in, the 20 acres of the Lyle Smart property. That will connect 1280 East from 7th North through 11th North up to our Murdoch connector, our Murdoch Road. And that will also allow some north-south traffic without having to make a left-hand turn on North County Boulevard. Again, we have item, and it's voted on, and it is unanimous. Thank you. Item 3, review and action on an ordinance approving distribution of $48,000 from the Park Tax Fund to the Timpanogos Arts Foundation and $18,843 to AF Parks and Recreation to relocate the horseshoe pits. We have a recommendation from our Park Tax Committee to disperse the money that was earned in the April, May, and June of 2015 to support the Arts Foundation and this one project for our Park Committee. And members of those committees are here if you would like to ask them particular questions, but this is the amount of money that was generated in that period of time that must be obligated before the 30th of June of this year.
Mayor, just a couple questions. This is kind of the first time going at this, so apologize for maybe a couple questions here. This, I understand, is for the first 3 months, like you mentioned, April through June. Do we know when the next allocation is going to take place?
Dale, can you respond to that? I think the applications are being taken now.
These funds came in during the last fiscal year, and these are the two applications we had that we approved as a Park Tax Committee. The applications for the current fiscal year are due by the 31st of March, and then the committee will study those and make a recommendation to the council towards I think it'll be in the first part of May. And those funds, based on the council's approval for distribution in July.
And so do we see that kind of being the normal process, just once a year, about every May or July, somewhere in there, reviewing those applications? And it's not going to be a quarterly distribution that we're going to see happen?
That's correct.
Okay. And then the other thing, just maybe be good as we get, be good to maybe have some minutes attached to it. So we need to understand why the committee's recommending various applications over other applications. So we could kind of see that. I know we get that for the planning commission minutes. It's just neat to see what expertise you guys have leveraged. And that's probably more of a request of staff than anything else.
I'm hard of hearing.
Dale, I was gonna suggest that we get this on the microphone so that it all can be recorded for future discussions. Thank you for coming up.
No, you're fine. I was just gonna ask, as you know, Dell, in the council packets, it's nice when we get things for zone changes and things of that nature to get the planning commission minutes, and you can kind of see the discussions and deliberations. I just thought in the future it'd be nice to have some minutes or something of that nature, maybe saying why these applications or others versus others, because I know as soon as we start allocating this money, I'm going to start getting questions as to why we did what we did, and be nice to have some of those deliberations.
Great suggestion, and we'll do that in the future. These were the only two applications we had, so.
Perfect.
Appreciate your work on this, Mr. Gunther.
Mayor, if I may ask a question, sometimes detail I get a little OCS. We're talking about money that will be collected through, I think the report comes in about the third or fourth week of the month. but through the end of June of this year.
No, through the end of June of 2015.
That's what these funds are.
No, the money from,
April, May, and June of 2015.
right, but then the next, I should have said the next go-round goes through the end of June of this
2016.
year.
That's correct.
What put this on the docket tonight was that these funds, the $66,843 that we earned in April, May, and June of 2015, have to be obligated before the 30th of June of this year.
And I understand that. But this next round, which will include 12 full months.
Yes, sir.
Has to be obligated before the end of June of 2017.
Yes.
So what I'm concerned about, and I could be totally wrong, I've been that way 100 times today. If we disperse this money in June or allocate it, let me use allocate, not disperse. If it's all allocated in June before we get through the full 12-month cycle, how will we know how much we have? Will we have that last month?
Yes.
Every month, the State Tax Commission sends us a report on our sales tax and our other taxes collected. This is our park tax, and so we will know on the 30th of June how much was collected for 30th June, and then we have the Park Tax Committee do their business, and then we approve those and forward them, and they have a year then to spend that money before the 30th of June of 2017.
Right, but if we don't have that report before the end of June, the 30th, as you indicated, how can we say how much money we have until we've got all 12 months? That's my only concern, is just to know how much is there. I understand we have to allocate it and everything else.
Understand?
I'm just hearing that we may be trying to allocate it before we have the final number. If I'm wrong, tell me.
We will let the State Tax Commission worry about that.
I don't think that'll be a problem, Councilman.
Did I hear a no from over there in the corner?
No, I was just comment with Casey about the sales tax year. Actually, as you know, does not end with June 30th.
No, it does not.
Typically, it's accrued back. July and August receipts shown from the state accrue back to the previous fiscal year. So the sales tax year and the park tax year are a little different this fiscal year. Didn't want to try to complicate it.
It is complicated, but I've had questions about it to make sure that we understand what we're doing and that we're very clear and that everybody can read the minutes or look at what's going on. Just want to make sure we're doing it so everybody can understand it,
We'll
including
make
people
sure
like me.
We'll make sure it's clear for you.
Thank you, sir.
Mayor, I'd move to adopt the ordinance approving the award of $48,000 to the Timpanogos Arts Foundation and $18,843 to the American Fork Parks and Recreation to relocate the horseshoe pits from the park tax fund.
Thank you for that motion, Councilman Shorter. Is there a second?
I'll second that and thank the Park Tax Committee for their hard work and dedication helping us out with this.
Seconded by Councilman Shelton. Any questions on this motion?
Yeah, I had some discussion, Mayor. As you know, I oppose the park tax, and I still do. When it was passed, I proposed that we have an offsetting property tax decrease since it was a sales tax increase, and I think that would have been appropriate. The park tax has taken in more money than was originally projected. I wanted to talk, though, specifically about this allocation to the Timpanogos Arts Foundation. I was looking at the profit and loss, or well, more of a cash flow statement that they submitted with this and kind of their sources of funding. And I'm concerned that so much of their funding is from the city of American Fork. From what I saw, it looked like about $80,000 over the year of a $100,000 plus budget comes from the city, and that's a concern to me. For people that don't know, they're set up separate from the city as a 501c3, and the purpose in doing that was so that they could fundraise on their own and not rely on the city so much and have more of a degree of independence. And I'm concerned that that purpose in that is getting lost. You know, I think they do a lot of great things, but if they can't afford to do all those things, maybe they should scale back. Layla, when she addressed the council in the public comment period, mentioned the public service hours, and I think that's great. A lot of people do, you know, voluntarily participate, and I think that's great. I know when my family, have family that participates in a lot of arts things, including performances, you know, kind of around the country in different places. And we actually pay for them to be involved in those things on a regular basis. So anyway, my concern is just twofold. Number one, the size of the dependence on city funding, and number two, on the direction, that rather than going to less city funding, it appears to be going to more city funding.
Just to take a look at that, I'm looking at their cash flow, profit and loss for 2013, and the American Fork City grant was only $26,000, and individual and business contributions were $46,000. So I'm not quite seeing exactly what we're saying there, having to be wholly supported by the city. Having been on the council and experienced the, if I can call it a spin-off, is that an okay word to use? We as a city have saved significant amount of dollars over that period of time. We go to the cash flow statement of profit and loss for 2014, contributions from the city were only $18,000, and individual business contributions were $41,000. So they do a great job in providing some wonderful opportunities for people to participate. I'm fully glad that we're able to take this money and allocate it from the park tax and not from the general fund, and wholly support them in their efforts.
Councilman Bone, I think you'll understand too, before it was actually city money that went into this. Now they have to vie for the money like everyone else, and as a separate entity, the city's no longer funding them out of our budget.
Yeah,
So-
I appreciate that. I think the direction was good to do it as a 501c3. My understanding is there's multiple contributions from the city per year, not just the one. But
Yeah, if you look in the cash flow, allocates each of those funds there.
And I guess my other comment would just be, I don't believe that funding of the arts in general is really the proper role of government. If the city was commissioning a piece of artwork for like the cemetery or to go in a public building or something like that, I'm fine with that. But just funding the arts in general, I don't think is the proper role of government. I think we need to keep our government limited to those things that can really only be done by government.
And I guess the great thing
May I
is,
make a comment? Councilman Bowen, have you looked at the amount of money the city spends on recreation and athletics compared to what they take in?
Yeah, it's subsidized a little bit, not a lot.
I think
I would like to make a
see it
comment if I
standalone,
could
too.
interject this. The Park Tax Committee was very involved in us passing the parks tax. That park tax is a quarter-cent sales tax. To liken that to property tax decrease, I think is wrong, because not everybody that shops in American Fork lives in American Fork. I spoke to multiple car dealers, of which American Fork City has 5. That is the cash cow in American Fork, and they tell me that of 12 automobiles sold in any 1 month, 1 of them will go to an American Fork zip code. And if you will remember, American Fork and Highland share the same zip code. So the beauty in the park tax being passed was all those people that shop in American Fork benefit American Fork residents through this fund coming to support our parks, arts, recreation, and culture. I
Yeah,
have
and
a motion and a second. I will
Just-
call for a vote. Please use your tablets to vote. Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 4 is your next on a progress release for the performance guarantee in the amount of $411,800 for the IFA American Fork Commercial Subdivision located at 900 West, 500 North. Any questions on this motion?
I just had some questions. As Dale's making his way up here, I know we've had some issues there with residents and fencing and having to maybe go back at them and do a new site plan on this or not. Where does this come in with all of that? Does it have any applicability?
So, as with any project that happens in the city, there's always bonding that takes place so that the public infrastructure and any common components, we're sure they'll get done, even if, say, the developer runs out of money. we've got that money. We know it's a construction guarantee. We're guaranteed we'll be able to construct those infrastructure items. As those are completed, then we return some of that bond money back to the developer, and that's what's happening here. This is a partial release. If you had an opportunity to look at the form that we track all this on, we have columns for a number of releases. I think this has 5 columns for different releases. We're releasing back money where we know the work is done. So, for example, the very top item, the fence. That fence is not complete because it's in place, but not all of it has been painted. So we're holding 10% on that item. Other items they haven't even started on. Some items are complete. So where they're complete, then, and we've approved them. Our inspectors inspected them and said those items are done to our satisfaction. Then we give them their money back.
When you release 411,800, you still have $269,400 left in the account.
That is correct. And when all those items are done, then we go into a durability phase and we hold 10% for another year. And so to make sure that we don't have any problems with that. So this really, there are still items that need to be done, need to be completed to satisfy the neighbors. One of them was the screening component. As you see, none of that money is being released back to them at this point. That still needs to be done. And we're still working with them to get that done. With regard to the changes on their plan, the changes were significant enough that they do have to go back through the planning commission, through the whole process. So their plan has to be reviewed, then it has to go back to the Planning Commission, and ultimately come back to the council.
So with that, would that mean that maybe there's some more bonds that may be required through that, or because mainly the infrastructure's in and the fence and things of that nature taken care
If
of?
any of that has to happen, that would be correct. But so as far as I know, the changes just have to do with the building itself, and not the public infrastructure or the common, like the fence or the detention pond.
One last question. I know that we talked about having grass seed planted there springtime. Have we had any of that taken place yet?
No, it hasn't. It isn't spring, I don't believe. It's still winter.
Well, if we go by the first...
It snowed today.
It snowed today. I don't think we're into spring yet. We keep thinking it's going to be spring, but we should have that happen soon.
Mayor, I'd move to approve the progress release of $411,800 for the IFA project, AF Commercial Subdivision.
Thank you for that motion, Councilman Shorter. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilman Bowen. Discussion on the motion.
Yeah, I had a little bit of discussion I wanted to talk about too while Dell was up here. Thank you for your... Oh, you're fine. You can stay there. I just wanted to clarify because the word bond was thrown out a little bit, be confusing. I think a more precise term would be a retainer, but this isn't money that the city has borrowed. This is money that the builder has put on deposit basically with the city. And then the builder does some certain things that the city requires, such as curb and gutter or pipes and stuff like this. In this case, a fence also. And then when that work is performed to the city's satisfaction, the city releases that. And this is a partial release of that, which is called a progress payment. And I just wanted to note, I had read the documentation that was submitted, and it looked like the money they're asking for is all stuff that has been completed. There was one thing that wasn't fully completed, and so on that we are not returning their money yet. But in the at a future time when that's completed, then the money will be returned. So I'm supportive of this. I do want IFA though to uphold their commitment that they made to the neighbors. We had a lot of discussion on this issue, a lot of neighbor involvement with the developer in this case because it did impact existing homes, and certain commitments were made. And I would just encourage IFA to keep those commitments, and city staff, I assume, is working with them to do that. And I think that was kind of what you were getting at, Councilman Shelton.
I have a motion and second. Council, would you use your tablets to vote, please? Thank you. Motion carries. Item 5, action on agreement for Memorial Gardens landscaping. This is a purchase request that came forward to do some landscaping for the Memorial Gardens at the cemetery. Councilman Frost wanted to address this, but he was not able to attend this evening. I believe that Derek can answer questions that you may have. There was a larger item included. Some of those in the overall bid have been eliminated, and this is for $97,453 to go with the company that has been installing the pavers.
Mayor, I move that we authorize the mayor to sign the agreement with Mountain West Pavers Specialists in the amount of $97,453 for the work to be done at the Cemetery Memorial Gardens, and to note that really appreciate the hard work of the cemetery committee and those others that are involved. It's coming along really well. I think it would be great to see that addition there to the cemetery.
I have a motion by Councilman Shelton. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Seconded by Councilman Barnes. Any questions on this motion?
Yeah, I had discussion on this one too, Mayor, and the next one. I support both of these issues, both of these measures as far as what they're doing, putting the pavers in at the cemetery and buying an emergency generator. I especially support, or leasing one in this case. I think leasing one is better than not having access to one. My concern is these are both significant dollar sums. This one's almost $100,000. The next one's over $200,000 over 3 years. And while it looks like city staff, tried to get quotes from vendors, it doesn't look like it went through a formal bid process. And that's concerning to me. I just wanted to ask our legal counsel, what is the state law requiring the bidding process? My understanding is that if it was $50,000 or more, that it had to go through a formal bid process.
My understanding is that it was bid out.
I talked with Councilman Frost and can report on his behalf that we approved a budget for this project, and that this money is within that budget that we had originally approved, and that this year is for, if you look at the bids that did come in, and it did go through a formal bid process to get competitive bids, this also was the lowest bid option. Talking with Councilmember Frost, there were a lot of other options that were available, and they whittled down to what they felt were needs versus wants, I guess you could say, in that type of a thing, to try to keep the cost down. So I feel very comfortable in supporting this because it's already within an existing budget, and we're going with the lowest bidder. And Brad, or Councilmember Frost, mentioned the quality of work he's been doing work for us already, and it's great quality of work.
So I don't question that it's budgeted for necessarily. I didn't look at that specifically, but I know that we previously approved money for this, and I voted for that, for this project. My concern is in the packet of information that we get in preparation for the council meeting, I didn't see any competing bids, and so
So the project was bid out, and we have received bids. What this amount is we've scaled that back in-house several times to meet the budget that we have had approved. And so we took pieces of those bids and put together this final packet. So all of the items have been bid and through a formal bid process.
Yeah, but originally the city was planning on doing this work, right?
No, it was a combination of, we are still doing work and we're contracting out a portion. So we're basically general contracting this project in-house, and this is a part that we're
but my reading of the material on this particular part of it, of putting these pavers in, was that it sounded like, or the impression I got, and maybe this was a misunderstanding, but it sounded to me like we originally were planning on contractors doing this part of the work, but determined that, the other way around, that we were originally planning on the city doing this part of the work to save money and whatnot, like you mentioned, but then kind of based on time constraints and trying to get this done by Flag Day, we're calling around for quotes to have this bid out instead of the city doing it in-house. And I'm fine with, if that's what we need to do, I'm fine with that rather than the city doing it. I just want it to go through a formal process, and not seeing any competing bids for this particular piece of these pavers, which is about $97,000, that's a concern to me.
Yeah, and this just isn't pavers. This is a significant amount of work that'll be done. The city staff has done the portion that we can do with our manpower, and we were planning to contract out the items in this that are included in this.
But originally on the entire project, we got multiple bids for the entire project, and these guys were the apparent low bidder on the project, and we've now scaled back their work, and we're now piecemealing it back to them from the original bids.
Correct.
We did have a number of bids originally, and we accepted the low bid, which were these guys.
Well, we wouldn't even need to be voting then because we already approved the contractor and the
We
amount.
approved the budget, we didn't approve the purchase request, and that's what we're doing tonight. Mayor, I think
Okay.
there's a motion and a
I
second.
have a
Can we
motion
call
and a
for vote?
second. Council, would you please mark your iPads to vote? Item 6, review and action on a resolution to implement outdoor water restrictions on the city pressurized irrigation users. It has come from our irrigation recommendation from our irrigation committee that as we start this new year, we implement the watering restrictions early on, and that being that the odd and even numbered days for watering. And we have prepared the papers to move this forward. This resolution needs to be approved in order to do that. Any questions on this item?
Just have one question, Ernie, if that's okay. I'm really good with numbers and stuff and not so much on water, so I'll leverage your expertise maybe a little bit on that side. I look at some of the snowpack counts, and I know in previous years we were 50% of normal, and then we're down to 30% of normal. It seems like now we're back up to 87, and one question I'm anticipating coming from people is why water restrictions now that we're kind of back to maybe normal levels from what they hear on the news?
Very good question, Councilman. Let me introduce myself so everyone knows. I'm Ernie John. I'm the Water Master and President of American Fork Irrigation Company. I'm also a member of the Metropolitan Water Board and the Water Conservation and Management Committee for American Fork City. So you're correct that the water numbers that they report, the snowpack is between 80 and 90%. That is not the whole story. Those numbers come from SNOTEL sites, which are located from 7,000 to 9,000 feet high. The two that pertain to our drainage are the Timpanogos Divide, which that site sets at a little over 7,000 feet right between us and Sundance. And then there's Snowbird one, which is at 9,000 feet on the north side of south side of Little Cottonwood Canyon, but on the north slope. So if you look at those numbers, they look good. However, Brian McInerney and Randy Julander from the National Weather Service just reported this week that our mid-level snowpack, which is the 6,000 to 8,000 level snowpack, is virtually gone. Because of the warm month February we had, that snowpack at the mid-level is gone, and even the south side facing snowpack up to 9,000 feet is almost all gone. So what that does to us is that leaves us with a very low soil moisture content. And so when we do get our runoff, the numbers aren't the whole story. We really only got about half of the snow that the numbers show. And then as we get our runoff, a lot of it's going to soak in before we get it. If you look at, I looked at the numbers tonight, the American Fork River since the 1st of January this year has run approximately 50% of normal, of average. We're still at 50%. And the Timpanogos Divide, as of this afternoon after the last snowstorm, barely made it to 70%, and it sits at that 8,000, just below 8,000 foot level. So that's the reason we're still dry. We are still in a drought. We've had 4 years of fairly significant drought, and we're still in a low water situation for this year, and that's why the committee made the recommendation to the council.
Well, I had a question too on this, because I also see that the snowpack is 90% snow water equivalent, and I know water runs downhill. I also know there's reservoirs, Silver Lake and Tibble Fork, and I also know it's not the time of year that the rivers are really at peak flow. So isn't AF River fed by Tibble Fork, and Tibble Fork's fed by Silver Lake?
As of now, you're partially correct. Silver Lake Flat was rebuilt this last year, and we will be able to fill that. Our water right runs from we can fill it from April 1st or April 15th to June 15th, so we have a window to fill it. It's now at its conservation pool level. Tibble Fork to date is not a usable reservoir in terms of water, so it just flows through. There's no impoundment that benefits the city for Tibble Fork. After the rebuild in one more fiscal year, then it will be rebuilt and we will have water storage in that. It was moved down this last year. You're right, water does run downhill. We haven't reached our peak flows, but if you look at the numbers for the American Fork River, for the amount of flow we have average at this time of year, we're still only 50% of this time of year's average. Not peak flow, just of this time of year. So we're still running half of normal flows for the time of year we are right now. And all of the other reservoirs that around the state that we have water, the city owns water in Deer Creek Reservoir. Deer Creek Reservoir is barely above 50% storage capacity today. It's about 7 to 8% lower than what it was last year when we started last year. And last year was based upon flows in the American Fork River. Last year was the 8th lowest flow since 1928. And 2014 was the 4th lowest flow since 1928. So we've been in a severe water situation for several years, and it's kind of cumulative.
Right. So, and I know that Deer Creek will be recharged some as the snowpack melts.
The projections are only about 10% more as it's going to gain.
Right. And so the way reservoirs work too is, you know, an entirely full reservoir is 2 water years basically. If everyone took out every amount that they could draw, it would draw it down halfway, and then there would be enough for another year after that if you started out with a full reservoir. So I understand what you're saying, that it's a little bit lower because of past years. It hasn't been filled all the way. But as far as what we've received this year, as far as water goes, it's been good for the entire area, you know, for the entire Provo Salt Lake area. My understanding is it's 90% snow equivalent water totals.
The good news is it's snowing on Timpanogos this evening as we're meeting. We hope that continues. The majority of water out of American Fork Canyon, though, comes out of South Fork, and there is no storage on South Fork.
There is no storage on South Fork. That's correct, Mayor.
And so we need to, it's the water department's or water board's recommendation that we approve these watering restrictions. Is there a motion to do so?
Mayor, just one comment. I move to approve the resolution for the purposes of immediately implementation of outdoor water conservation measures. I just think it's good for us to think about it, what we use and why we use it and how we use it. And this just gives us, and again, I don't think we've enforced it against anyone. No one's been charged with any violations thus far. So I think it's good for us to think all the time about what we have and why we're using it, and do we really need to use what we're using. So I'm okay with that, and that was my motion.
Thank you for that motion, Councilman Shorter. Is there a second?
I'll go ahead and second, and it's basically the same program as it was in years past.
Yes, sir.
That is correct.
And you have to water every other day, and if we really want to talk about water restrictions, we should go compare to what municipalities in California are doing and requiring as far as restrictions. Watering every other day, I'm not too sure would be an extreme restriction. It's just a precaution to help keep us safe at this point.
It takes out the peaks and valleys and makes it easier
Right.
for us to manage what flows we do have.
So I have no problem
yes, it
seconding
does.
that.
Have a motion by Councilman Shorter, seconded by Councilman Shelton. Any questions on this motion?
Yeah, I just had one more comment on it.
Why does that surprise me?
And I appreciate your reports too, and the fact that they, you know, are to the extent that they're data-based. I appreciate that, which I believe is what you were trying to do. And but my concern on this is just something I threw out last year, and I'll throw it out again this year. And I think the rest of us are aware of this, except for maybe you, Councilman Barnes, because we talked about it before you were on the council. But part of why we have to do water restrictions every year is because the system can't support the water pressure if we don't divide it up even odd. And my recommendation on that is just for the city to identify the root cause, put it before the council so we can, you know, fix the root cause, and be honest with the electorate. Tell them, you know, instead of making this mandatory, do it voluntary. I think 90% of the people, if you just say this is what we would like you to do, you know, and why, I believe people will do it without these mandatory water restrictions.
I'm not sure of any anomalies in our water system. Dale, are there any anomalies there that we're not being forthright with the electorate on?
No, sir. The biggest problem we have is just a storage issue. If the electorate wants to bond for $25 million so we can put in more storage, and then we can, you know, provide water to everybody every day. But it really is a storage issue. We have enough storage to provide all the water people need every other day, which seems to be plenty of water to keep American Fork green. And so we're encouraging people to conserve and to use what they need and not just use unlimited amounts of water.
So let me just clarify my comment. Before the water restrictions were put in place, it was brought before the council that we were having problems with water pressure in the system because too many people were using it at the same time. So that's where I was coming from. If I misunderstood,
Pressure has never been an issue.
Could I make a comment? In 2011, we had almost 400% of normal snowpack, and our river flows were, we ran the river all year and ran all we needed to run into the system, and the system ran flawlessly in 2011 because we had the flows to run into the system. It's really based upon the flows that come into the system that we have to control it that way.
right. So I came onto the council in 2013, 2 years after that, and I guess the flows weren't as good that year.
We've had 4 years. 2011 was the last year of drought. If you'd like, I have a graph that I could show you that shows the river flows every year since 1928.
But the issue has never been pressure.
No, it hasn't been pressure. When we have the water, we had plenty of water and plenty of pressure.
Okay, that might be a technical distinction, but there was still a problem with volume. There was a problem with people being able to use the system without us doing this this odd number, even number regimen that was put in when we first implemented water restrictions.
That's correct. And the issue is where if everybody's using the water the same time, and it's usually in the morning, so every morning everybody in the city is watering their lawns, then we're drawing down our reservoirs faster than the water coming in the top end from the river can refill them. In a good flow year like 2011, there's as much water coming into the system as there is going out to people's lawns. But since then, we've had 4 years of drought where the water replenishing those reservoirs isn't enough to satisfy all the users at one time. And so it's not a question of water pressure. We have plenty of pressure. It's a question of volume, and the incoming volume isn't enough to satisfy all the users at one time. And so we have this means of dividing the users up in a way that allows us to serve everybody, all the water that they need. Not an unlimited amount of water every day, but the water they need to maintain.
And I think that's fine. I just think we should ask people to do it voluntarily. So I would move to amend the motion on the floor.
I have a motion and a second. I'll call for a vote on the motion.
I'm moving to amend that motion, Mayor, which is in order. So I would move to amend the motion that's on the floor to strike the penalties and to replace mandatory with voluntary.
I have a substitute motion. Is there a second? I'll ask again. There's a substitute motion on the floor. Is there a second? Hearing none, motion dies for lack of a second. We have a motion and a second on the floor. I'll call for a vote. Council, would you please use your tablets to vote? Motion carries. Thank you very much. Item 7 has been pulled from tonight's agenda. There was a agreement for food truck vendors for our Steel Day celebration. This requires some updating by our civil attorney. We'll have this on a future council agenda. Moving on to item 8, review and action on approval of a lease agreement between American Fork City and Sunbelt Rentals for a 100 kW diesel generator. This was looked at as part of our needs for an emergency plan for running of our wells. I would ask that the council look at this and see, is this really worth $70,000 a year over a 3-year period of time to assume that we are going to have a problem and Rocky Mountain Power can supply the power to any number of our wells. We have 8 wells in the city. We can get by with running any 3 of them at any one time. There are different locations in the city. The grid would maybe be impacted by maybe 1 or possibly 2, but it wouldn't impact all 8 wells at the same time with our service from Rocky Mountain Power. Is this where you want to put your money?
Yes, Dale, we're going to get some good exercise tonight, you know. Hopefully we run a pedometer and count those steps. But looking at this, I'm assuming that if we have an earthquake that's going to knock out our power, because that's pretty much the natural disaster that's probably the most likely to take place, would it also knock out our distribution channel of that water as well to many of our users?
Depending on where, of course, if there's a fault that could disrupt our flow of water, yes, absolutely. one of the faults that we are aware of is right at the mouth of the canyon, runs along the base of the foothills there, and that could be a problem for our water line that comes down the canyon from the Cave Camp Springs. However, we do have the 8 wells here in town, and so we can always pump up our grid using those wells, assuming we have power. And this is what we're really looking at. If there's a minor outage that's a localized outage, we can go to a different well site and continue to get power from the power company. If there's an area-wide issue and there's no power available, say in the north part of the valley or even the entire valley, then we have maybe a 2-day supply of water and we're out of water. So this is what we're really looking at is the ability to provide water in a major kind of outage situation. We have looked at purchasing. The purchase price for that same generator is about $450,000, and because of some of the water projects that we have coming up in the next 3 years, some major water projects, we didn't feel like there's really no way that we could purchase a generator at this time while we're trying to do these major projects.
Is there a line of, I guess, as I'm looking at it with Rocky Mountain Power, when they have like a major outage like that, I would assume that getting power to culinary water systems would be a bigger priority than maybe getting power to every individual home. Would that be a fair assumption?
I would assume that would be correct.
Yeah, they have a priority system. Any power company that's familiar with that in other cities, that they definitely, we had a major ice storm in the city, and we lost power throughout the whole area. So we had, first priority was to get the water back online.
So I guess my question is, kind of going off of what the mayor may have been alluding to, we know we got some major water projects coming up. We've talked about the line up AF Canyon. We've talked about First East. We've never had the need, knock on wood, and thank goodness, to ever have to need that. And I hate to rely on that, but when you only have so many dollars to go so far, are we better off replacing those water lines with the immediate need, and maybe we build up a savings or reserve to where we could afford this down the road if we felt like it was a needed project? I guess right now I see those same dollars competing for replacing aged water lines that are already falling apart.
And that is correct. There's always that competition for the dollars, and that's why we brought this to you to let you decide. It was something that came up in the goal-setting session.
No, and I think it's great to think about. I think I'm not saying that we shouldn't look at it at all, but I think as you're looking at competing dollars, and now's the time to be able to make those tough decisions, right? Is it better to replace the pipes that are running the water to the people, or have a generator sit up there at $70,000 a year? I don't know.
Mayor, I'd prefer to, I think, to buy it at some point and maybe try and set some aside and buy it outright. And again, like I said, we have the wells for the emergencies. It'd be nice to have the emergency generator there, but we just roll the dice.
Well, we run the generator to run the wells, usually in the summertime a little bit is my understanding, but I would just like to talk about this a minute. I think this is a really important issue. Actually, it's one of those things that politically it's always hard to take money from whatever you want to spend today to prepare for tomorrow. But I think that's really the wise thing to do. The state legislature did that with the Capitol. The LDS Church has done that with the Mormon Tabernacle. And I just think it's really smart to be prepared, even though that's a hard choice.
Norm Bangeter did it with the pumps on the west side of the Great Salt Lake, too.
Well, that actually
was here then, Mayor.
I was here then, but that actually wasn't preparing for the future. That was trying to deal with something because people hadn't looked down the road and expected that high water mark. What was it, a 20-year high or 50-year high or something? But I think it's really smart to prepare for this type of thing. I don't think we as a city, if there was a major earthquake, which I think is a question of when, not if, we as a city would not want to be relying on Rocky Mountain Power to come fix us. I can just see us on the phone crying for their attention when they're dealing with all kinds of other cities throughout our state, our county, our community, many of which cities would be a lot bigger than us. I would rather us take a few small prudent steps that are necessary for us to be prepared, you know, should this event occur. I am with Councilman Shorter, though, that I would prefer to purchase a generator and also to have the necessary fuel to run it for a period of time. And maybe that could be on natural gas, and the fuel could, like, you know, gasoline or diesel or something could be a standby backup. Because when we do run the generator, which we currently do, my understanding is it raises our electric bill quite a bit. If we, you know, we could test it out by running it on natural gas, that would be a periodic test of the generator, and maybe it would save on our electric bill. But whether it does or it doesn't, I think it makes sense to have one. Would well, if you're running a generator, you're providing your own electricity, so that's not raising your rate, right?
Right, but you were saying just the opposite.
So I'm saying that natural gas is cheap, and maybe it would be cheaper to generate our own electricity with natural gas than it would be to buy it from Rocky Mountain Power. I don't know if that's the case or not.
A natural disaster, one of the first ones going to happen is that gas line's going to get ruptured.
Exactly, and that's why you would have the diesel gasoline, like I mentioned, as a backup. But I just would move to table this and ask that, because my concern with it was that we didn't have bids on it, and I would.
We actually did.
You did go
and
through
I
a bidding
apologize
process?
for not including those. We actually bid this about or last year. We bid this, and the Sunbelt Rentals came in with the lowest price, but then we didn't move on it, and then we just went back to them and asked if they would still honor the price that they gave us, and they said they would. And I apologize for not including those quotes.
Okay, so they were the low bidder?
They were the low bidder.
Well, based on that, then I will change my motion, and I will actually move to approve this.
Mayor, I'd like to make a substitute motion if we could, that I move that we table this item and we hold a work session to get Rocky Mountain Power in to be able to understand their plan and what they would do in a crisis. And then at that point, we could make the assessment if that purchase is warranted or not.
Okay, I have a substitute motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second the substitute.
I have a substitute motion and a second. Any questions on this substitute motion?
Let's hope nothing happens
Between
before
now-
we have the meeting, or we're all dead.
Well, and I would just say too, I don't think that Rocky Mountain talking to us in a work session really makes much difference at all, because I think it's pretty plain to see that in the case of a natural disaster, as we've seen in New Jersey with the hurricane that hit there, people were without power for months. You know, and
That's individual homes, not necessarily the water system, so I think it's not fair to make that assessment until we get the professionals in here to see what they are prepared to do and how they're going to handle it.
System, and where our water system supports American Fork Hospital, you bet we're going to be a priority to get those wells online.
Well, I know
should we need it.
I know when hurricanes struck Louisiana and Houston, there wasn't bottled water in our stores for weeks because that water supply was going to those communities. I just don't think I think that this is kind of something we can decide without that level of detail. I don't mind them coming in. I'm just saying that I don't think we need that to decide on this.
Resources I can put out. I can bring people in from 8 or 10 western states. I have a substitute motion and a second. I'd ask the council to vote on your tablets, please. Motion carries. Thank you. Item 9, review action on award of a contract for the 1120 North Storm Drain Improvement Project to Nolan and Son Construction Company. If you will notice, we've got on 1120 North some drainage issues on 60 East, and I believe it's 80 East, and also going down from 1st East to 2nd East with some improvements of curb gutter and doing some collection box improvements and tying that 24-inch drain line in to an underground drain that feeds our pressurized irrigation system. So I think this is a good move. We have bids, and Nolan and Son is the apparent low bidder.
Mayor, we should accept the bid submitted by Nolan and Son Construction Company for the construction of 1120 North Storm Drain Improvement project in the amount of $675,837 plus a 10% contingency of $67,583.70 for a total of $743,420.70 or authorize staff to proceed with the preparation of contract documents.
Thank you for that motion, Councilman Shorter. Is there a second?
I'll second, and I just want to make a note that I'm glad that we have staff in place now to make sure that we don't have issues like this happen down the road, that we do testing and things of that nature to make sure sumps are going to work where they're going to work, and if we need a pipe to do that storm drain, we're going to. So I feel very comfortable with
Well, this
that.
has been a problem for us for about the last 12 or 15 years, ever since that subdivision was completed. That has been a problem for us, and I think this is the right way to go. I have a motion and a second. Any questions on the motion? Council, would you please vote using your tablets? Motion's unanimous, thank you. Item 10, review and action on subdivisions, commercial projects, condominiums, and planned unit developments, including 1, plat approval, 2, method of satisfaction of water rights requirements, 3, posting of an improvement bond and setting of a time frame for improvement installation, and 4, authorization to sign the final plat and acceptance of all the dedications in the public and to have the plat recorded. We have 3 such projects this evening. Item 10A, review and action on a final plat of Ashley Meadows Subdivision Plat A, consisting of 33 lots, located at 900 North, 900 West in the R1 12,000 and R1 9,000 residential zones. This was approved and platted one time previously. It was found that there were some easements that were not needed on this plat, and in order to sell these lots to these potential buyers, without the easements, it was necessary to come back and replat the lot. I believe that's the answer from the planning department. Pretty much it, John. What we were doing is eliminating some easements. It's the same plat, the same size footprint of lot. We no longer have those easements recorded on those lots.
Mayor, I'll make a motion to approve the final plat of the Ashley Meadows Subdivision Plat A, consisting of 33 lots located at 900 North, 900 West in the R1 12,000, 9,000 residential zones, and authorize the mayor and city council to sign the plat and accept the dedications with instructions to city recorder withhold recording of the plat, subject to all conditions identified in the public record associated with the March 2nd, 2016 Planning Commission meeting minutes.
Thank you for that motion, Councilman Shelton. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Shorter. Questions on this motion?
Yeah, I just had a little discussion, Mayor. I believe, and just so the developer and whoever knows the people that might buy these lots, I support the change to the subdivision. But my understanding from the reading was the purpose of the change was the sensitive lands ordinance. And it basically said in there that the ordinance, when it was originally adopted, was so broad that it applied to land anywhere in American Fork City, but it was intended to apply to land in the south and the west of American Fork City. This has to do with water table issues. My understanding from reading about this is that the water tests for this particular subdivision, which is not in the south part of the community down by Utah Lake, is that correct? This is up by 900 West, 900 North.
900 North.
So it's not down by Utah Lake where that sensitive lands ordinance was intended to apply to. But they did test for groundwater and didn't find it to like 15 feet down is what I read. So I just want to be upfront about, you know, why it is this change is being made. And if that's truly the case about the sensitive lands ordinance, I would just ask if we could have staff take a look at that and you know, work on the ordinance to make it so it doesn't apply across the board, and I think that would be helpful.
The ordinance, I can clarify, it does not apply across the board. There's specific maps in there. Mostly it's for the south end of the city. When the subdivision went through, the city engineer at the time felt that this land warranted sensitive lands designation, but then further tests proved that that was not needed. So it wasn't a blanket ordinance, it was just additional testing took it out of there.
So thanks for that clarification.
Somebody making a call that they didn't need to make is what it boiled down to.
So it wasn't the ordinance that was the problem, it was the way the ordinance was being applied, it sounds like.
The interpretation of the ordinance.
Great, thank you for that clarification. Either way, like I said, I support the final plat.
All right. I have a motion and a second. Any questions? Would you please vote using your tablets? Motion is unanimous. Thank you. Item 9B, or I beg your pardon, 10B. Review and action on an ordinance approving a commercial site plan for Strangling Brothers Paintball, located at 632 East, 1500 South in the PI1 Planned Industrial Zone.
Mayor, I had a chance to review the documentation and the minutes of the Planning Commission, and I make a motion to adopt the ordinance approving a commercial site plan for Strangling Brothers Paintball located at 632 East, 1500 South in the PI1 Planned Industrial Zone with the instructions of the city recorder withhold publication of the ordinance subject to all conditions identified in the public record associated with the March 2nd, 2016 Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you for that motion, Councilman Shelton. Is there a second? Seconded by Councilman Barnes. Any questions on this motion?
Well, I just, I like that there's a parkour and a paintball course coming to American Fork City. I think that's going to be awesome. A lot of people might not know what parkour is, but that's a big thing with the youth. They think it's really cool. There's some neat YouTube videos about it, and it's basically just kind of jumping over low obstacles, and it's almost like a sport, and it's really neat. And paintball, of course, is very fun.
And this is one of the few uses that this property can have. This property is heavily encumbered with overhead and underground easements. You couldn't build buildings and put things in there, but something of this nature is one way the property can be used and bring people to our community and be a revenue generator for our community.
My other comment was just going to be, I'm not crazy about the name. Of course, that's up to the business, and I know that there's all kinds of marketing and stuff involved with that. It seems a little violent, Strangling Brothers, but I'm very supportive of the business and your rights to run it and name it and all that.
If you've ever played paintball, sometimes getting strangled would be less than getting paintballed, because those things hurt. You guys are doing this. I just want to thank you for doing it. Having had a bunch of sons that are really into this many years ago as teenagers, I could tell lots of stories, but I won't. Thank you.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any more comments? Hearing none, I'd ask the council to vote on their tablets, please. Motion is unanimous. Thank you. Item 10C, review and action on ordinance approving a commercial site plan for an office building located at 525 East Automall Drive in the GC2 Planned Commercial Zone. Any questions on this one?
My iPad just froze on me, I think, so I'm going to...
Mayor, I'd motion to adopt the ordinance approving a commercial site plan for an office building located at 525 East Automall Drive in the GC2 Planned Commercial Zone with instructions to the city recorder to withhold publication of the ordinance subject to all conditions identified in the public record associated with the March 2nd, 2016 Planning Commission meeting.
Thank you for that motion, Councilman Shorter. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Seconded by Councilman Shelton. Any questions on this motion? Hearing none, I'd ask the council to use your tablets to vote, please. Thank you. Motion is unanimous. Item 11 is review and action on entering into an executive session to discuss the professional character and competence of individuals. Is there a motion to move to executive session?
So move, Mayor.
Motion by Councilman Shelton. Is there a second?
Second.
Seconded by Councilman Shorter. Any questions on the motion? Hearing none, I would ask for a vote by voice vote. All in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? I would ask that Mr. Whitehead, Mr. Mackus, and council join us. Yes, sir.
Is it the intent to adjourn this meeting from the executive session?
Yes, we can do that. That is our intent. Casey, would you join us, please? Thank you. We will adjourn to executive session.